Hafaday, welcome to the Guam Congress Building. The Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture is now called to order. Today's Wednesday, April 19th. It's now about 1:09 p.m. I'm sorry, 2:09 p.m. Thank you. I'd like to recognize the presence of Senator Tom Fisher with me here today. We are here for one purpose, and that is the reappointment hearing of Elizabeth Barrett-Anderson to serve as a member of the Criminal Injuries Compensation Commission for a term length of 4 years from April 1, 2023 to March 31, 2027. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair, and please state your name for record-keeping purposes. The Criminal Injuries Compensation Commission can provide financial reimbursement to victims of crimes for crime-related expenses to ease some of the financial burden that may be faced. Victims, dependents, parents, guardians, or any other persons who have incurred expenses because of a victim's injury or death can apply. Expenses that may be covered include medical expenses, funeral or burial costs, loss of wages, property damage incurred as a result of the crime, any qualifying costs incurred as a result of the crime or incident. Eligibility criteria include that the victim died or was injured, that the crime is at least one of the crimes listed in 8 GCA 161.55, that the crime occurred in Guam, or if it did not occur in Guam, the victim is a resident of Guam and the place where the crime occurred does not have a criminal injuries compensation program. The arrest made or crime reported to police without undue delay. The application was made within 18 months of the victim's injury or death. The Commission determines eligibility on a case-by-case basis, and applicants should not assume they qualify or do not qualify. For more information, you can contact the Criminal Injuries Compensation Program Administrator, Pauline Antalan, at 475-3324, extension 5030, or visit their website at www.guamag.org. So the position that we're considering today is one of the commissioners for this criminal injuries compensation. There are 5 members appointed by the governor with the consent of the legislature. We'll now hear from those who have testified in favor of relative to the nomination of Elizabeth Barrett-Anderson, who's former judge, former attorney general, former senator, on her nomination to serve again as a member of the Criminal Injuries Compensation Commission. So we have the nominee here. Welcome, Judge. We also have Attorney Fred Nishihara. And we have a member of the Criminal Injuries Compensation Commission, Ms. Denise Mendiola. Thank you all for being here. Fred, you're signed up first. I guess you can go first.
I should yield to Commission Member Denise at least.
Okay, sure. Denise.
Hafaday, good morning, Madam Speaker, Senator Fisher. I will be reading a testimony on behalf of Polly Mike Crisostomo, the chair of our board. Hafaday, Madam Speaker, I would like to submit my testimony on behalf of Elizabeth Barrett-Anderson in full support of her confirmation as a member of the Criminal Injuries Compensation Commission. Former General Barrett-Anderson and I have served for numerous terms as members of the commission, and along with the other members, worked tirelessly to provide prudent judgment on cases brought to us for possible compensation as a result of their victimization. Her current leadership as chair of the commission has afforded us the opportunity to grow and expand the work of the commission by providing functional rules and guidelines and proposed legislation that would assist victims of crime. Her knowledge and professional experience is needed and is certainly appreciated by many. I humbly ask for your expeditious approval for her confirmation as a member of the CICC. She has my confidence and full support in her desire to serve victims of crime. I apologize for not being there to deliver this testimony in person due to the fact that I am currently off island. Respectfully, Polly Mike Chrysostomo.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mendiola. I'm sorry, Judge, are you the chairperson of the commission now?
Yes, I'm the current chair, but Polly Mike was chair for a lot longer than I
Several
was.
years.
So it's very common for us to call him chair.
Yes, okay, great. I thought he was a chair still too, so, all right, great. Thank you. And, okay, and Attorney Fred?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Hafade and Senator Fisher as well. Maybe I'll start by also saying I have known Your Honor, former senators, former AG, my entire legal career, which spans 30 years or so. So I am here testifying in strong support of the reconfirmation of the Honorable Elizabeth Barrett-Anderson as chairperson for the Criminal Injury Compensation Commission. I had the privilege of working with then Senator Barrett-Anderson as her legal counsel during her tenure in the 24th legislature. I believe also the 23rd, was it? In any case, and during the establishment of the Juvenile Drug Court in 1999 and through to 2001 while I was the DOE legal counsel. More recently, I worked as a deputy AG during her tenure as Guam's elected AG from 2015 to 2018. She undertook major projects to advance the rights of crime victims with much success. Some of the highlights include revitalizing and retooling the CICC, assuming the role as chairperson, nominating commission members for the governor's appointment, drafting rules and regulation in 2015, and creating an administrative infrastructure within the OAG's office to support the commission members in their vital roles. General Barrett-Anderson scheduled regular meetings with the commission and eligible victims to ensure their compensation claims were received with timely action. General Barrett-Anderson has been a champion of crime victims' rights through the years. She pursued a federal reimbursement process, the Crime Victims Act, or VOCA as we call it, in which the grant would reimburse Guam for a portion of every dollar awarded by the CICC, which is funded by fines and fees paid by defendants. This was the first for Guam, a testament of her leadership and a positive step toward matching and sustaining the CICC fund for future crime victims. Testimony and support for the reconfirmation of, As Attorney General, she planned and hosted a criminal victims' rights fair to raise awareness of organizations and services that are available to support crime victims. It provided a network of opportunity for service providers as they are all provided services with a common goal to help victims rebuild their lives in the aftermath of crime. Procured Guam's first automated victim information notification system, which we know as AVINS. The system was implemented to increase victim safety by notifying them in real time of changes to defendants' classification status within Guam's justice system. For example, they were incarcerated or they were released from jail. This technology is used in 48 states, including Guam. She also hired additional victim advocates, separated victim advocates from the prosecution division, appointing an administrator to manage the AG's newly created Victim Service Center, provided training for the advocates, and added new office space with private interview rooms to maintain confidentiality during interviews with victims. She also appointed an advisory council for the Victims Crime Act grant administered by the OAG's office to review proposed submissions from non-government organizations for VOCA funding and recommend funding. The composition of this council included members from the business community, education, and public safety. Finally, she developed an first ever multi-year state plan for VOCA grant funding outlining the priority fund areas for Guam, which provided guidance to VOCA advisory council members as well as the nonprofits. The role General Barrett-Anderson has undertaken, first as AG to revitalize the CIC, strengthening the infrastructure and the support for victims within the AG's office, and now as CICC chairperson, was critical to ensure eligible victims have the resources they need. There is still much work to be done. General Barrett-Anderson's vision, capacity, and commitment to lead this commission as an essential function of government is unmatched. Her previous leadership role as senator, an appointed AG, a judge, and elected AG make her an ideal nominee, one who understands public policy, the justice system, and the needs of crime victims. Thank you again for this opportunity to testify in strong favor of General Barrett-Anderson's confirmation as chairperson for the CICC. Thank you.
Thank you again. That was Fred Nishihira, Deputy Attorney General of the Office of the Attorney General of Guam. All right, now we will hear from the nominee, Judge Barrett-Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this hearing. And first-time Senator Tom Fisher, I've known him a long, long time, and it was always a pleasure having you in my courtroom, Tom. Superb jobs. Okay. Hafaday, Madam Speaker, and members of this committee. It is my privilege and honor once again to appear before this committee to testify on my appointment to the CICC Commission for the term of April 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2027. I am currently sitting as a holdover. The statute allows me to stay on until I leave or I am reconfirmed. So I'm still active. I am grateful for the governor's continued confidence in my service to the people of Guam. It seems like yesterday I appeared before the committee seeking approval on my first appointment. Fast forward, I am the current chair of the commission. I am grateful for the comments and support of my fellow commissioners, members of the staff of the Attorney General's office, and others here today. I would like to take this confirmation hearing as an opportunity to update the committee on the work of the commission and our work to achieve future sustainability. You've heard me say that word every time I'm here. The commission has been fully operational since the summer of 2016. Most commissioners, as Denise, are serving either their third or, like Polly Mike, their fourth term of appointment. You have a very consistent, dedicated group of commissioners on the CICC. The Criminal Injuries Compensation Fund continues to be healthy. It is administered by the Department of Administration with a fund balance of $1.56 million. These monies are collected from fines ordered against defendants who have been sentenced based on the conviction for a violent crime under the CICC statute. The program is eligible for federal incentive funding, as Fred spoke, from the Office of Victims of Crime, based on amounts that are awarded out. The current federal incentive formula is 75 cents on the dollar. That's an increase from previously, I believe it was 65 cents. The Commission has awarded to date a little over $876,000 to victims and eligible applicants from the fund. I think the number that I'm informed of is about 120 awards have been granted. We have had about 270 applications, 120 have been awarded. Some have been denied because they weren't eligible. We became eligible for federal incentive funding in 2019 and have been awarded $259,000 for grant years 2019, 2020, and 2021. So that money goes into the fund. 5% of that federal portion can be used for administrative cost, We just have not gotten to that point. The fund does not receive direct appropriations from the general fund at this time. The general fund supports the program from fiscal year appropriations made to the Office of the Attorney General, with no specific line item category or direct appropriation to the CICC. I don't know what the budget from the OAG looks like, but I'm sure there's no category that says CICC. The Office of the Attorney General provides support in the processing and review of victim applications, recommendations on awards, preparation of public notices, financial and account management, technical MIS and legal support, and most especially, Senators, the OIG Administrative Support Representative here today, represented by Miss Amanda Castro. She's right over there, Program Coordinator 1. We couldn't do the work that we do without her. To achieve long-term sustainability, the Commission is requesting the legislature to fund a full-time FTE Program Coordinator 2 or 3, dedicated to the Commission and this program. I have spoken to Attorney General Moylan, and he was supportive of it, but I'm not sure if it's in the budget. Additionally, we would greatly appreciate a modicum, yet meaningful, budget for supplies, contractual services for notice and publications, and travel to attend valuable off-island training sponsored by the Office of Victims of Crime. No commissioner has to date been sent for training. The Commission will be presenting also to the legislature a bill to amend the CICC enabling legislation, which is Title 8, Chapter 16 of Guam Code Annotated, Chapter 161 of Guam Code Annotated. In the 6 years that the Commission has been fully operational, we have noted several areas of the statute that require clarification and/or change. We hope to have that bill will be discussed at our hearing late next week, Friday, for final approval, and thereafter we hope to have it forwarded to this committee, and we ask your earliest consideration and passage. One of the most urgent matters which the draft bill will address is protection of victim confidentiality. Guam law mandates the publication, broadcasting, and reporting of victim information contained in applications which include contact information of victims and applicants, background information concerning the crime, hospital care, medical billings, and in some cases, juvenile information. Federal crime victim statutes and regulations such as Violence Against Women Act, VAWA, the Family Violence Prevention and Services Act, and more directly, the Victims of Crime Act, mandate strict confidentiality of victim information. Local mandates put the program in conflict with federal program guidelines. The Commission has decided to defer consideration of further awards until the conflict can be legislatively addressed. Once again, we ask for the legislature's earliest consideration and passage of a mandatory language contained in our soon-to-be forwarded draft bill. I look forward to continuing my work on the Commission along with Polly Mike, Dr. Lisa Flores, and Denise Mendiola. We are incredibly appreciative of the generosity and assistance of Attorney General Doug Moylan that he has shown to the Commission. On behalf of all commissioners, I express our undunkalo sidzus maasi to the chairwoman and members of this committee and all senators. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony and for your work on this commission, of course, and in particular for the work with the OVC and the funding that you've pursued through the Victims of Crime Act, and for the proposed budget and legislation. I like the details and that you are taking care of that conflict. So I will definitely schedule that so that we're ready to move on it as soon as possible.
Madam Chair, when the oversight for the budget hearing of the Office of the Attorney General is to be had, I would love to come down if there are any questions that I can also answer at the budget time.
All right, thank you. I'd like to welcome Senator Chris Barnett, a member of our committee as well. Thank you, Senator. So we did receive one other written testimony from Jonathan Diaz, not in favor of the nomination. Other than that, I want to thank you for your years of service on this commission. I think it's very important, and I'm so glad that it's been very consistent, since you revived it, that it's been consistent, and that the current Attorney General is in full support.
Yes, he is.
That's very key, as we have seen. All right, so I'm going to open it up to panel. Senator Fisher, any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have known the nominee, Judge Barrett-Anderson, for 30 years. I support this nomination 100%. I don't see how the governor could have made a better choice. For 30 years, I've appeared in front of you as a litigant, both for defense and for prosecution, and I think also as a plaintiff and a defendant, not personally, but representing them. And I've always received a fair, just and polite hearing, and all litigants that I observed that appeared in front of Judge Barrett-Anderson received the same. She has a wonderful judicial temperament, and I just can't say enough about this nominee. But I do have a question for you, ma'am. I believe it's 161.9 of the Victims' Compensation Act, or Criminal Injuries Compensation Act. It looks like the statute of limitations on a claim is only 18 months. Yeah. That seems short to me, because, I mean, that's shorter than a SOL on, a civil action, and sometimes injuries don't appear immediately, and I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that, which is the length of you got 18 months.
I didn't have objections to the 18 months. I appreciate the fact that it reasonably could be seen as short, particularly as you and I, in our legal careers, do understand how long it takes sometimes for crimes to be reported, for victims to feel safe enough to come out and report, especially in domestic violence cases. Sometimes victims just want to hide and they don't want to be heard from. I would not be opposed to an increase. I believe the 18 months comes from Hawaii. We copied Hawaii, as we often do on Guam. We just copy someone else's law. So the 18 months, it would be reasonable to extend it. What that would be, I leave that up to the senators.
Okay, and then just sticking with statute of limitations, it looks like the clock starts upon the occurrence of the event.
Yes.
And as you know, sometimes somebody can be accused of a crime and presumed innocent and not adjudicated for a couple of years is not unknown. Do you think the clock, in certain circumstances on the SOL, should maybe be reset and triggered upon a judgment of conviction?
The compensation is not dependent on conviction or a judgment.
Okay.
As long as a police report is filed and the application is within the statute of limitations currently of 18 months. So we can, and we have, of that $876,000 that we have awarded out. In some situations, there was never a perpetrator found. In a lot of situations, convictions have not even occurred. And in those situations where a conviction and a judgment has occurred, we inform the court that we have paid compensation that may equate to restitution. And we have asked in our plea agreement, or judgments rather, we've asked the judges to order defendants to reimburse the commission if we have paid damages that were part of a restitution. In the bill that I'm submitting to this body, it will address a Guam Supreme Court decision in June of last year, where the Supreme Court reversed a trial judge's order, the defendant to pay the CICC restitution, because the Supreme Court opined, and I believe the Supreme Court was correct, that restitution under Guam law is for victims, not an entity like the CICC.
Okay.
And they further said, if the legislature wanted the CICC to be reimbursed by defendants, and there are a lot of judges who are not going to let that defendant go just because the CICC has paid some medical. The judges want those defendants to be responsible for those damages. The Supreme Court said then the legislature needs to put it in statute. I took that as a bell. The light went off.
Yeah.
And so in the draft legislation that we are sending over, it responds to the name of the case is People versus Resalap, which is the Supreme Court's decision last year to allow judges to order restitution to be paid back to CICC if we have ahead of time paid it. And we often do, Senators. We actually get to the issue of restitution and damages a lot sooner than, as you said, it takes years for a trial and then appeal and then on and on.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. And last question is out of left field. Do you know if DRT treats compensation as taxable income?
I believe they don't. Somewhere
Good.
in my recollection and memory, in my getting the CICC operational, I believe it is exempt.
'Cause it seems like it's analogous to an insurance payout, and it should not be.
It should not be, and would you like me to clarify that and find you the answer on that one?
If you can get an
I
answer,
will.
that'd be great. But thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am. I appreciate your answer to the
And
questions.
Senator, by the way, we both didn't mention that you came to Guam when I was Attorney General the first time,
I believe so, right at the end.
and you were one of our ace and top prosecutors, and I remember those days.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
If you find the answer on the treatment of compensation with rev and tax, you can maybe include it in the bill if it needs to be. All right, Senator Barnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, if Senator Fisher supports you 100%, I support you 1,000%. And actually agree wholeheartedly with the governor's nominating letter, and I have no other questions or comments, only other than to say I feel like you've obviously one of the, if there's a Mount Rushmore of, you would be up there. And also very compassionate, so I fully support your reappointment to this commission. Thank you.
Compassionate, yes, but I don't want my face anywhere.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Well, I can't be left out of the love fest going on here. I'm kidding. No. I think we worked for very many years. I think I was counsel when you were a senator. And I'll never
Yes.
forget when you decided to I think you went to be AG after that, or did you go to judge?
No, I was
AG
appointed.
first. Oh, no, AG, and then you came to be a senator, and you said, oh, it was so much easier. I'll never forget that. And then, but as Attorney General, I think my most vivid recollection is that you were very responsive, very cooperative with the legislature, very helpful, exactly as you are being with the CICC, and even going as so far as to draft the bill and give us very specific advice based on your experience and what you think is needed in Guam. So I appreciate that very, very much. Could I just ask, out of the 120 awards from 270 applicants, can you tell us again the denial of applications? What would you say the causes are?
Primarily, I would categorize it as first would be the crime didn't fit the listing.
Okay.
The next one would be the statute of limitations. Next, not an eligible applicant, you know, and we've been struggling as a commission on eligible applicants for like funeral expenses, the godfather, the great-grandparents. In our culture, there are so many people who contribute to funeral expenses, but the eligible applicant within the statute is limited to certain categories. And then the last one would be, it was off the tip of my tongue, but it kind of goes in that category. Not, crime not eligible, statute of limitations, not eligible as an applicant. And the ones that have been a heartbreak, and in the statute that we are sending to you, we've had to, if I might just take one situation that was, to me, a great heartbreak, leaving the scene of an accident with injuries as a felony. Oftentimes, you don't find the perpetrator. That person gets hit, is either dies or is severely injured. And we've had 3, if not 4, Denise, at least 3, right? At least 3 that we could not grant compensation for the medical expenses because hit and run with injuries as a felony is not contained in the list. And I think it might have been just an oversight, or we just didn't know it was there. You know, you go through the Guam criminal statute and there's, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of crimes, and this particular one is not even in the criminal code, it's in the vehicle code in Title 16. And so we've had a hodgepodge of reasons for denial, but we try not to deny as much as we try to make every effort. And on those hit and run with injuries, I was trying to find some possible way, but I think it was clear. It was just not in the list of statutory crime, violent crimes, eligible for compensation.
Could I also ask, how do the victims find out about the program?
Amanda might be able to tell you more of that information. I believe Guam Police Department is quite aware of it. All of the nonprofit organizations are aware of us. The victim advocates of the Victim Service Center.
That's what I wanted to know.
We have trained them, yes.
Okay, but Victim Service Center, are victims who have no cases brought also covered?
Yes, if they come into for services, they can receive services.
Okay, without a case, without a perpetrator being found. Okay, great. All right, I just want to make sure that we're doing all we can to inform the victims of this program when they need it.
Well, the more we can, the
Yeah.
more information that's out there. Like, as I said, the fund is healthy. Some of the senators that I have spoken to were wondering whether the amounts are sufficient. It's $20,000 for medical capped and $10,000 for everything after that for property and funeral expenses. So there's a cap. So Senator Fisher spoke about the statute of limitations. I think some other senators want to, is the cap too low? It's been there for 35, 40 years at $20,000. And we keep it at $20,000, but there isn't one single applicant that comes in that has a medical bill under $20,000. They're up there in the hundreds of thousands of dollars now. And Senator, one of the reasons why I wanted to also get that federal incentive money, if the legislature wants to increase the cap, then we need to get that money in. And the proportion that was given to Guam for 2019 was $82,000. For 2020, it was $95,000, and then for 2021, it was $82,000. So we know that the feds will and have looked upon Guam for incentive money. We just need to keep giving it out. But the things that you have to consider is statute of limitations. Is the cap reasonable? Are there crimes that should be added? Senator Fisher, we also don't have a vehicular homicide. we have vehicular negligence, but we don't have vehicular homicide. That must have been an oversight. So our bill is going to address that one. So there's so much more that, and I don't exactly get an opportunity to come down and talk to the senators only when we have a confirmation hearing. So I take this opportunity to be able to present as much as I possibly can in my review of the statute and the work of the commission.
Yeah, just a quick comment, ma'am. You're right. It says vehicular homicide while driving impaired. Why did we add driving impaired? I don't know. We could have just said vehicular homicide.
They looked at the impairment, but not vehicular homicide or vehicular negligence with bodily injury, leaving the scene of a vehicular.
Yeah, and the intoxicated part's really hard to prove. It can be, but yeah, okay, I totally agree with that.
Well, Senators, I feel like the godmother looking after the CICC, and it was the one committee or commission that I was very pleased that the governor appointed me to. She also appointed me to the recent Criminal Law and Review and Procedures Commission, and then I found out that I cannot be appointed to two commissions with legislative confirmation, and I had to express to the governor that I decline her appointment to the Review Commission because I want to stay on the Criminal Injuries Compensation Commission. There's a statute that no individual who is can be appointed to more than one commission that requires legislative approval. So I chose CICC. I still do work not as an appointed member of the Law Revision Commission. I am an at-large member, but this is my only legislative confirmation appointment.
Well, thank you again for keeping this one and keeping it moving and keeping the victims taken care of as much as we can pursuant to our statute, and I'm very much looking forward to your recommendations. And thank you also, Denise, for your work on this commission, and Fred, I know you've been helping with this as part of your role in the AG's office for many, many years, so Sizos Masi. And I'm sorry, and if I could also thank you, Amanda Sizos Masi, for all your work. I know how these are, and they don't run without the program coordinators or the other staff making them really, really run day to day in between their board meetings, right? So thank you. All right, there being no other comments, we'll consider this confirmation hearing duly heard. The public hearing is now adjourned. It is 2:48 p.m. Sizos Masi.